Yo, it's Lucas coming to you from the car wash. Yeah, it's where I like to hang out when I don't have to be at work. It's quiet. Not a lot of people come here. Well, once in a while I get some guy next to me having a vacuum and the noise happens, but for the most part, it's a pretty cool spot to relax, chill. Got to almost done with my drug and alcohol work. Got an abscessed tooth this week that I'm dealing with. Been through a lot in the last couple weeks, a lot of emotions, a lot of different stages of development, I guess you could call them. Plus now we're going through like 2 retrogrades, and then we got all the solar flares. This is supposed to be the biggest one today, tonight, sometime. That will affect certain things, communication. It affects animals a great deal too. That's why we get to see all the cool lights in the sky now from those. So that's a pretty good visual. But as far as energy goes, it can be quite the challenge. I've felt it. A lot of other people have felt it. It's huge though. It brings forth growth to some degree. Can cause a lot of anxiety, especially if you're not aware of things that are going on in the air. Yeah. Being aware of things that's going on with yourself is huge, and how your body reacts to the different things that are coming about through our system of our environments, where we're at, and how our bodies react to certain things, certain alignments, certain shifts and differences that come about. Transitioning into those differences can be really challenging. If I know for me, if I'm not doing my maintenance, which actually I haven't been doing a lot of maintenance like I talk about doing. I think every now and then I'll get into a routine of continuing my maintenance and having a good time, and then falling out of it just to see if the struggle is still there, I guess you could say. I challenge it sometimes, and it always shows me that yes, you, Lucas, need to continue maintenance, or you're going to have struggles, and emotional struggles, spiritual struggles, because these are the things that keep me balanced, that keep me aware of what I'm doing and the things I need to adjust. And it's very easy with my OCD mind to get sidetracked, to get out of balance in general. That's why I'm a drummer. A lot of us musicians, we do have OCD habits or certain disorders, which isn't necessarily a bad thing to have a disorder. It's about managing it and when to use it. It's about putting up boundaries. When is it appropriate to be in my disorder? If you can facilitate that to happen. Knowing certain triggers that put you in the emotional that put you in an emotional anxiety. What things are those? Figuring out who you can be around, what places you can go around. It's kind of like just people, places, and things that are gonna, challenge. I mean, everything is a challenge, but it's also a choice. It depends on our perception. Everyday life can be a challenge. Going to work can be a challenge. Getting up to go use the bathroom can be a challenge. I mean, it's just, everything takes energy, everything takes work. And depending on how we're treating ourselves and what we're doing, and I'm recognizing because I fall short of it, my physical aspects, what I intake in my body isn't always the best. I don't choose or have the ability at this point to eat the best of food, so I get what I can get, you know. And I don't know, it's kind of like, with me, it's kind of like, I like to mingle with my dark side, but not too long. And when I say that, I'm like referring to when I'm putting my health maybe in a bad situation, you know, because that produces a struggle that is totally, you know, self-induced. It's a struggle that I put on myself because everything is a choice. And granted, I have a really addictive personality that makes it, you know, more of a challenge to some degree to always make the right choices for my physical health. And sometimes you can really be doing a lot spiritually and not enough physically to create an imbalance, so you don't think that you're in a bad place necessarily, but it always comes back to you. And it's always a reminder that, hey, you need to evaluate what you're intaking in your body, you know. Like these. It's a freaking struggle. And there's a lot of us that have different struggles, different addictions. And it's really hard to manage those addictions. Addictions just, you know, there's steps you have to take in order to get out of an addiction and not have to relapse. And it's a process. I've been through it. And it's been being able to let go of certain habits has brought a lot of freedom, you know. And, you know, I dealt with meth use for 16 years and haven't touched it, and I think it's going on like 23 now, which is really good. You know, it's helped me to make better decisions not being on that, of course, and not hang around the wrong types of people, of course. And I have a lot more choices because I chose and I did what I needed to get to that spot. And the support groups were really helpful. I no longer go to the support groups. Only for the fact that I was there for 10 years and, you know, there was still an imbalance. There was always this feeling of suit up and show up, but I don't know. I feel like I couldn't really be myself all the time, but I don't know. I think that was my perception of myself at the time when I was in recovery. And after I stopped going, I got really sidetracked and stopped doing what I was supposed to do. And I started drinking again. But now I haven't had a drink for almost a year. I think Christmas will be a year. And I'll be getting off paper on the 29th. So, New Year's Eve would be the perfect time to go out and drink, but I'm not going to choose to do that. I'll probably be around some people who are doing it, but I have got to that point in my life where I realized, after having this year to be in situations where I could have drank and I chose not to, due to the simple fact that, yeah, I could be going to jail. That was but even towards the end, before I got into all this trouble, I had to really cut down drinking. I wasn't drinking as much. It was more like a habit of going to the store and buying a tall boy or something like that, and nursing the shit out of it, probably not drinking at all, So I was kind of like, I never really got back heavy into drinking after I quit for 10 years. I drank socially mainly. I didn't drink on my own. It was like, if somebody offered me a beer, then yeah, sure, something like that, but nothing major. Except when I was in Florida. Now then I drank like a fish out there. Could have got myself into some serious trouble. So obviously I'm here to continue to learn, what my boundaries are, because it seems like the boundaries change a lot, and I think it changes based on my perception of things, and what I've put in my body the day before. What I've done the day before will affect my tomorrow, usually, is what seems to be the case. And so I have to really hone in on what I'm doing, who I'm hanging out with, the things I watch, the things I listen to. And I love death metal. It's one of my favorites, and fortunately enough, they've created death metal to be more of you can't understand the lyrics unless you look them up, and even though you don't understand them, they're still being spoken. Kind of got to look at that sometimes. What's it really based off of perception, or is it just based off the music? Because the music's a really good release for me. It's part of my therapy, just like doing videos on this channel is part of my therapy as well. It helps a lot because it's more or less like I'm talking to myself per se, and also allowing my true thoughts to come out, and it kind of gives me a time to think through some of my thoughts to see where my perception is when I'm doing these videos. So it's really good, and it keeps me authentic, keeps me expressing my true self. Life isn't always a party as much as I'd like it to be, but it is very interesting to watch different situations occur and how people react and how I react, and it's definitely an interesting process. I think that's why I'm always going to different events, because I like to see the social interaction, how people communicate with each other. It helps me learn, and it helps me make a decision on what type of person I want to be in the long run. So based upon other people's situations, I can learn from. Sorry about the noise. It was this guy changing the garbage. He was eyeballing me because I have been sitting here for a few hours working on my classroom work and such, but they're usually pretty cool. They don't tell me to leave, because really I'm doing absolutely nothing but sitting. I get to go to the dentist tomorrow and start getting these 2 teeth pulled out, add it to the collection. Got the next 3 days of work. I have today off, and was gonna spend it with a friend, and decided to just kind of do my own thing, because I haven't been in the best of moods, and You know, you just don't want to be around people sometimes when you're not feeling good, or when the energy's off, or if the energy's going to be off. To me, it's a respect thing sometimes, just to be by myself, and I know a lot of people think that way. And you know, yeah, it depends on if I'm putting myself in isolation or solitude, you know, and that's a choice as well for me. I can sit here and I can mope and grope about things I don't have or wish I had, or I can start changing my perception into looking at what I have and what I want to build in order to create goals, in order to keep my mind in an exercise mode. Not to get too deep into thinking and to get in my own thoughts, but at least my mind's putting together some ideas of what I can do next to improve my life. So, you know, yeah, I kind of want to touch on disorders a little bit, because a lot of us have them, and I don't know if they're based upon, you know, the things we put in our body that have started to create you know, because some foods, some things we use on our skin have toxins in them that can help us create certain disorders, certain ailments. And you know, being aware of that, you know, is half the battle. The other part is taking action. What can we do? And you know, we deal with the health system relying on people to treat us when certain ailments come up, and we get misdiagnosed all the time. We get prescribed the wrong meds. That's something I'm not a big fan of, by the way. I feel like my mom would still be here if it weren't for the doctors. That's how I feel about that situation. But you know, all in all, our bodies do rejuvenate quite easily. But I think our minds are the things that get messed up the most, because our perception, after our body goes through a trauma, our mind usually follows, and then that can create a certain type of PTSD or anxiety towards certain situations that we have to deal with in the future or in the present based upon the past. So, and our minds will have our bodies messed up really quick. That's from experience. If I think I'm dying, I'm gonna have certain elements that show me I am dying, when in all reality we're all going through our processes of dying. But at the same time, if I concentrate, I'll get myself to believe it. So that's why I always talk about coming from the heart rather than the head. Getting those two together in alignment, it's very difficult. I think it can be done, but it takes a lot of maintenance. It takes a lot of practicing of different things, and it takes commitment to get that alignment, get that balance. And it's never perfect. It'll never be perfect. As long as we're on a 3D level, it'll never be perfect. So for me, I used to be the biggest perfectionist. Now I'm all about not being perfect. I got a crooked mohawk, for Christ's sake, and it's crooked bad, you know. I mean, it's just, and you know, it's kind of a representation of nothing's perfect. You know, having that perfectionism mentality causes anxiety in itself. I know. So yeah, having certain disorders, it can be really challenging. And the disorders, you don't see them. They appear, they come about. And I don't know if it's just the imbalance when you're not doing what you're supposed to do on this 3D level and on the 5D level. You know, there's a balancing act that we're trying to play here. And those who aren't even aware of the 5D role that we play in life are the ones that struggle the most. They're the ones who are not talking about things like this. focuses on everything else going on around him. And I think that's what the big teacher of this 3D realm is about not getting distracted. And I wish I could say not being controlled, but we're all controlled no matter what we are doing. I'm on the phone right now being controlled in a sense. I'm using this as a therapeutic value, but I'm also helping YouTube. I'm also using products of major corporate companies for this to happen, for my therapy to happen. I am promoting these people by being on the platforms, while also trying to promote myself or people in general on how we can get through this life in a fashion that doesn't make us want to kill ourselves on a daily basis, is what it boils down to. And it all has to do with the mind and being open enough to recognize when things aren't in alignment, and that there are different things we can do that we weren't taught growing up that we can do that will help us, that come from different areas of the world that they've been practicing for centuries in order to live somewhat of a peaceful life, versus what we do here in the United States, which is full-on stress mode most of the time for the majority of people. And I'm telling you, when you are into energy work, those of you who aren't, there's a lot of responsibility built into that, because you're feeling other people's feelings. You're going through dimensions of historical things happening where there's still energy left behind from those things, and people don't understand why they feel the way they feel when they drive through certain areas of the country. It's about looking at the bigger picture and looking on the spectrum that's outside of what we were taught, and tapping into the different ways that we can learn more about our spirituality ourselves, and where we came from, and how we can better maneuver through this life on a more higher frequency, more spiritual note, if you will. If I feel I have a few disorders that, I got to keep in check here and there. Nothing that really, I think the only medication I take is THC for anything. I rarely ever take Tylenol or ibuprofen for anything, I'll take THC on a daily just to keep my mind from going apeshit. It puts me more in a creative mode, depending on where I'm at, who I'm with. I can be very creative under the influence of THC, especially with the music thing, And when I was drinking, the alcohol really didn't make me creative. It just made me want to pee a lot. Sometimes put me in a bad mood, so don't need any of that. So this has just been a process of me lately dropping what I know works for me, just to see how my perception starts to change. And it's not like my perception went on a negative route necessarily, but it just went on this cycle of like feeling like I'm almost not capable of helping myself or anybody else, I guess, there's a lack of confidence And so when I do my maintenance, like I know it works for me as of right now, my confidence goes up. And it puts me in a mindset of I can do anything versus I'm limited. And so I feel like I do a cycle of where I'm, like a month straight of doing all my maintenance, all the different little rituals that I have, and I stopped being creative with those rituals. I just don't do them at all, and just to see how my perception changes, just to prove to myself how much it works, because I don't want to talk about things that I have no experience with, or that I know doesn't work, I mean, that's just, nobody wants to do that. A lot of people do that and try to sway people into thinking a certain way in order to get some kind of outcome of it, where I don't have any expectations except for the fact that I already know that when I do a video on my channel, it probably helps at least one person or reaches one person that gets something out of it. And number two, it's part of my therapy. So it's usually a win-win. But I don't want to mislead people. I'm here to help uplift. And that's all I'm here to do. Whether I make friends out of it or not, that doesn't really matter. Helping people is what matters. So back to the disorder. I know I have a few disorders and I have to keep a check on it, and it's trying at times, but when I'm not taking everything so serious, I'm able to post the boundaries I need to with myself, usually, and stick to those boundaries and look at the bigger picture about why I have them and what they can do for me. Play a tape through a scenario that could happen, and I usually make better choices when I do that, and I end up not hurting myself or anybody else, if there's anybody else involved, Types of disorders. There's a lot of disorders out there, and I think everything leads to one thing and point, and that's self-love. There's a lot of disorders that can keep us from loving ourselves because maybe we're in too much of a manic mode or anxiety phase or whatever you want to call it, because we are not perceiving things. I feel like when I'm in those modes, I'm not perceiving things the way they really are. I'm perceiving things in a past note motion of what has happened before, and it puts me in an anxiety mode or an excitement mode, which is one of the same. So it's really, it's not tough to tell the two apart, but I think the same thing happens to our body when we're excited and in anxiety mode, From my experience, that's what I've seen and felt. So, and if you know you have a disorder, because disorders are really weird. Disorders will make you think you don't have them. It's kind of like addiction. Addiction's a fucking disease that makes you not really see that you have it, But yet you have everybody pointing it out, type deal. But you personally, your perception isn't really seeing it. But if you got a lot of people telling you about it and you're not fucking doing anything about it, that's a bad choice in my book. Like, at least with my type of disorders that I have, I do things that put me at ease with them, because the worst thing you can do is trip over a disorder that you have and make it a big deal. I mean, even though it is a big deal, but make it a bigger deal than what it needs to be. Because I've been there too. You know, when you have a disorder, you either go extreme on either side of a situation, you know. We're extremists. So it's very important for me to have boundaries, to lay down boundaries, figure out what they are. Because disorders can be a good thing. There's a time and a place for everything in my heart. That's how I feel. There's a time and a place. There's a time to be anxious. There's a time, you know, but if you are stuck, I feel like if I get stuck in that mode all the time, dude, there's something I'm not doing, you know. I really have to check what I'm doing. I really have to be aware of what I'm perceiving. How am I looking at things? What type of glasses am I wearing? And if so, if I'm not where I want to be, or my perception is off and I realize it, what do I need to do next to fix that? Is it my physical? Is that my emotional? Is it my spiritual, you know, sections of me that haven't been paid enough attention to create that balance to where I can perceive things the right way? And sometimes there's just things that we see that we just don't like in general. It's not necessarily a perception. It is what it is. If that makes any sense. So, and that can be trying to differentiate those two apart, you know. Not to get emotionally involved. It's very hard for people who do energy work. If we're not, you know, I'll just speak for myself. If I'm not shielding, I'm going to pick up on other people's energy, you know, and I can't afford to do that when I feel like I'm in a, you know, vulnerable situation. Being an energy worker, you are in a vulnerable situation every day. You're more aware of things, which is a good thing, but can also take a toll on you, you know, if you're not protected or shielded or paying attention to you know, what type of self-love you're giving yourself, if any at all. What type, you know, physically, what are you eating? What are you putting in your body? What are you watching? What are you thinking about? All these come into play, and they can make or break you if I don't do the maintenance that's required, that I know is required. It's intuitively sent to me what I need to do in order to get right with me. Until that helps me get right with other people. It helps me stay authentic, and I don't have to be somebody else. And when caught up in disorders, it really can turn you into somebody who you're not. Yeah. But everything's a learning process on this level of life. And it's very hard sometimes to follow examples of other people, what they do and how they are, because it's not you. It's not, everybody's had a different upbringing, everybody's gone through different things, but we've all felt the same feelings. In my heart, I feel we've all gone through the same feelings based on different tragedies, based on different things. And I think some of those can create disorders. I think our drug use can create disorders. And sometimes I feel like you just got to step back, look at the bigger picture. If you have the energy to, you know. how to gain the energy, do what makes you feel good. If you like walking, if you like yoga, if you like bicycling, if you like shooting guns, I mean, whatever it is that brings you enlightenment, that can take you to a spot where your perception is clear and you can look at the bigger picture, do so. I invite anybody to do that. You know, don't get caught up on the past, the decisions you made in the past. Today's a new day. If you really want it, you'll choose it. Eventually. We all come to our breaking points when we know we have to change, no matter what. That's okay. That's what this whole life's about. Being able to change. Being able to grow. Regardless of what disorder we have. Making our disorders work for us can be done through boundaries. You know, find something that works for you. Be open to ritualistic tactics that can combat that disorder, you know, because it exists. We got all the tools. We just gotta find them and learn how to use them. This is what we're here to do. And then instead of gatekeep what we learn and what has worked for us, share about it, you know, because we can't keep what we have unless we share about it. I know a few people that might see this video will be like, I've heard that before. I know where that came from. I get that. So, you know, today was a little sad. I kind of just, I had plans to stay somewhere and I just had to go because I just realized that, you know, I wasn't in the best spot. My friend wasn't in the best spot. And I respect when people, you know, if you don't feel like being around people, I get that. I have my bouts like that all the time. Today is one of the days I do feel like being around people, but I didn't budget my money, which is another downfall of how I've always been. But I haven't budgeted my money to where I don't really have any gas in my car. I got enough to make it to the dentist tomorrow evening, and boom, I get paid. And we'll have money for gas, and I have enough just to get to the dentist and be paid by the time I'm done with the dentist to get gas. So, kind of stuck in my work area, Redwood Road, North Salt Lake. Just been sitting here for hours working on stuff with me, you know. It's always good though. I always feel better about what I've done, and instead of sitting here being ungrateful for not having money or for all the things that have happened because I chose them. You know, taking responsibility and realizing that I too I have a long way to go. I really do. Long way to go. And that's fine. I mean, what else are we here to do but have a long way to go? It could be a long life, it could be a short life. It's all about what you put into it. I feel I've experienced that. So on that note, I don't know what I'm going to entitle this video because I think I hit a lot of points and a lot of different aspects that we as humans go through. And I'm sorry for the noisy video. There's trucks and some eyes and everything, you know. But, you know, whoever checked this video out, leave me a thumbs up if you would. If you got anything you want to touch on, leave a comment. We can do that. If you have any interesting stories, hit me up. Maybe we can get you on an interview. Yeah, so I'm going to continue on with this evening. Back to business as usual tomorrow. throughout the week. Gonna go see Entheos Friday night with Louisa, my guitarist. And then I have to go to work Saturday, which kind of a bummer, but you know, it's just a process. None of this lasts forever, so I'm not gonna dwell too much on it. It is what we make it, I guess, right? So for now, have a great week. Namaste to you, because the weirdness in me will uplift and support the weirdness in you.